Universal Orlando is a wonderful place to be with years of history. And I know, like me, when you come to this park, you can't help but miss those classic attractions. Jaws, Back to the Future, King Kong. Where did they go? They're not here anymore. But there are still some amazing and very clever references to some of the great attractions of old Universal Studios all around the park. And in today's video, I'm gonna show you some of my favorites. In this video, I'm taking you guys around Universal Studios Florida to find some of the coolest references to the original Universal Studios, because there are a lot of them here in the park. Some in line, some on the rides. I'm gonna share with you some of my favorites today so that you can impress your friends the next time you come to Universal and wanna be a little Universal historian. So welcome to another episode of Vincent Vision. Watcha! So I hear it all the time, and I think people talk about it all the time, and they always say, oh why can't these old rides still exist? Well, I think the biggest problem is space. You know, Universal once started out as just one little theme park and had a lot of space to grow, but now there's Islands of Adventure, all these different hotels, and this area has kind of hit the walls. So because of that, whenever a new ride comes to Universal Studios or even Islands of Adventure, they have to make the hard decision of figuring out what they've got to replace. And because of that, we've lost a lot of wonderful rides. One of them used to be right back over here at the back of the now Race Through New York starring Jimmy Fallon ride. This used to be a Ghostbusters attraction. This firehouse behind me was the entrance to the Ghostbusters Spooktacular attraction that was here when the park opened up. It existed until about 1994, and this was a Ghostbusters ride here in the park. Well, more of a show, really. You got to witness the Ghostbusters fight a whole bunch of ghosts and Gozer from the first movie. There's this big spectacular using like Pepper's ghost effects to make the ghosts appear in front of you. This firehouse here is meant to resemble the firehouse from the Ghostbusters movie. Now, this is just a pass-through for the Rip Ride Rocket roller coaster that flies through the park. But there are some little references and nods to the Ghostbusters experience. The window over here references Chief Michael Mormon. This is actually an actor who played Winston in the Ghostbusters show. And on the other window, there's a reference to a paranormal travel agency. The Spooktacular wasn't the only Ghostbusters experience here in the park, though. Right by the old firehouse was the New York Public Library, and I actually remember this being a place where there would be a Ghostbusters show. The Ecto-1 would come out, the Ghostbusters would come out, and they would like battle Beetlejuice. Like it was Ghostbusters versus Beetlejuice, and then he like made them all dance and stuff like that. Fun fact, I don't know if you guys actually know this, but Wayne Brady, the comedian, used to work here at Universal Studios, and he played Winston in one of the Ghostbusters shows. So that's pretty cool. The New York Public Library, of course, is a real place, as are the two lions at the front, which, by the way, their names are Patience and Fortitude. These guys are in the first Ghostbusters movie. This is where they go in the first scene of the movie, and for a long time, the Ghostbusters would dance up on these steps over here. And I would say the most recent Ghostbusters sort of reference that we've had here in the park was in 2019 when we had the Ghostbusters Haunted House at Halloween Horror Nights, which was super cool, super fun, really like a true faithful experience. And I hope we find Ghostbusters here in the park someday in the future, because it's just too cool. Now, Ghostbusters wasn't the only experience to share the building that Jimmy Fallon's in now. This used to be home to Twister, Ride It Out, the live-action special effects show based off the Twister movie. Now, this I remember doing it. I remember it being very scary as a kid, and unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there's that many references to the old Twister attraction. The only thing I could find is in one of the windows near the Jimmy Fallon ride, there is an advertisement for Twister Cola, and that's about it. I do remember when Twister closed, a whole bunch of fans came to the park dressed like Bill Paxton from the video of the ride, and they all like got to experience it one last time, take a big group photo. There is a shirt that's like hanging on the window as well that could be a reference to the iconic Bill Paxton wardrobe from that video, but I'm not really sure. Still, Twister was a really great ride. Ghostbusters was an experience I would have loved to have seen, and Jimmy Fallon is here. Watch. Our next stop on the retro tour is the old Kongfrontation attraction, which existed here in the New York section of the park. also known as, to me, the scariest ride here at Universal Studios. Unfortunately, it is long gone, but it has a worthy replacement with the Revenge of the Mummy, one of my favorite rides here at the park. And I'm also happy to say there are a lot of great references and Easter eggs to what used to be on the Mummy ride. One of the most famous is in the treasure room of the Revenge of the Mummy. As you're going through, on the left-hand side, if you look up above the treasure, there's actually a golden statue of King Kong banging his chest. It's about like medium size. It's a little hard to see, but once you see it, you're gonna see it all the time. And then strangely enough, on the opposite end of that same room, there's a giant banana. Not like a golden banana or anything like that, it's just like a big banana. And there is more of a subtle reference to the gorilla himself. In the queue for the Mummy ride, you often see this big symbol, which is sort of like meant to represent Imhotep and the mummy and things like that. And a lot of people say that the symbol also looks like the mouth of a roaring gorilla, which I think if you look at it, I can definitely see the resemblance there. Something that's a little bit more of a ride fun fact, maybe not so much left on purpose, but when you ride the Revenge of the Mummy, the big show building that used to house the King Kong ride, the track for the ride used to be up on the ceiling, and that's sort of how you went through New York. Whenever they replaced Kongfrontation with Revenge of the Mummy, they were not able to get rid of the track on the ceiling. So, if you look very quickly and carefully while you're riding the Mummy ride, if you look up, sometimes you can see the track that's still left on there. Pretty cool, especially if you're a ride guy like me. It's fun to see leftovers of old rides like that. So right now I am at the exit of the Fast and the Furious ride, but a long time ago, this was the entrance to what used to be Earthquake. And what's really nice about the Fast and Furious ride is that in the queue, there are a lot of really great references to what used to be. The Fast and Furious ride actually is a really big ride and takes up the space of two former attractions here in the park. One of them was the Beetlejuice Rock and Roll Graveyard Review, and the other was Earthquake. Because of that, there are little references to each of these experiences. As you're going through like one of the first rooms before you go into the pre-shows, there is a jacket that's hanging off the seat that is from the old ride that replaced Earthquake, Disaster, which was like kind of the same ride but like a different theme. It had like Christopher Walken in it. And then there's like a caged room that has a bunch of like car parts. There's a little Beetlejuice figure up there. And actually I asked, and one of the team members was nice enough to like let me into the room to get a nice close-up video of that Beetlejuice figure. That is a reference, of course, to the Beetlejuice show. There is a fountain right outside of the ride that's been there since the show had been open. Since like the beginning of the park, really. That's where you would like enter to go do the Beetlejuice show. And there is like one more reference right before you get onto the ride itself. There are some electrical boxes with dates on them. One of them says like EQ 90, which is like Earthquake 1990. There is Disaster 2008, which is like when that version of the ride opened, and then Fast and Furious 2018. So fun little references. I think this queue has some of the most references to previous attractions, which is pretty awesome. And now we have made it towards the back of the park, where I think the number one most missed attraction here at Universal has to be Jaws. I miss it every day. If it was here right now, I wouldn't be making this video. I'd be on the ride, riding it, happy as a clam. Jaws was a beloved attraction, and while Diagon Alley behind me is an incredible replacement for the Amity section of the park, I miss it every day. But luckily, there are some really great references to what used to be. The biggest and most obvious one is the gigantic shark that sits right next to the Chez Alcatraz bar in the San Francisco area of the park. That is the actual shark that used to sit at the entrance of the Jaws ride. Millions upon millions of photos have been taken with it, and you can still get your photo with that exact same shark to this day. This water here, this lagoon, this is where the Jaws ride used to be. I'm just kidding. It was not. It was over in Diagon Alley over here. And in Diagon Alley, there actually are some references to Jaws. Huh?
Duck's watching.
Hi, Mr. Ducky. You want to know about Jaws fun facts? Here, come on over here. Show our friends, our captive audience here. Hello. I'm going to tell you, Mr. Ducky, one of my favorite Jaws fun facts.
Sharks don't eat ducks.
Sharks don't eat ducks?
No.
Oh. You learn something new every day. Over in Diagon Alley in the London section of the park, there is a record store, and all the different records on display have references to like the creation of Diagon Alley, a lot of in-jokes, but one of them is actually a quote from the Jaws movie, which is, Here's to swimming with bow-legged women, which is a quote from the character Quint. Inside Diagon Alley, in Nocturne Alley, one of the interactive spells allows you to silence a group of talking heads. And they talk a lot, and they talk about a whole bunch of different stuff. But one of the things that they do is sing the song Show Me the Way to Go Home from the Jaws film. This is the song that the three main characters sing before they get attacked by Jaws the next day. And a reference, or even like a holdout, that I don't think a lot of people think about with the Jaws ride and the Amity Land is this whole little section near what used to be Fear Factor Live. That bathroom is the only holdout from the Jaws ride. So those used to be like the restrooms right by the entrance to the ride, and even that little section of the park still plays music from the Amity Land. If you're crossing the bridge from The Simpsons to Diagon Alley, you can hear the original soundtrack that would play in the Amity 4th of July section of the park. So, really fun way to imagine. You're still gonna go on that Jaws ride. Fortunately, it's still not here, but we still got a lot of great little references in the park. Next up is the Back to the Future ride, which was replaced by The Simpsons in the back of the park. And on the Simpsons ride, there are some pretty fun callbacks and references to what used to be. There's actually like an in-universe explanation for why the Institute of Future Technology, what used to be the building for the Back to the Future ride, has become Krusty Land. Krusty actually bought the deed from Doc Brown, which they show in the Simpsons line video, which by the way is like about 45 minutes long. We waited there trying to get this exact clip to show you guys for this video. And on the ride itself, there is a callback to a very iconic scene from the original Back to the Future ride. If you guys remember, towards the end of the ride when you're going through and there's the big dinosaurs and you actually get swallowed by the dinosaur. When you're on the Simpsons ride, it happens the exact same way. At the end of the ride with Maggie, when she's gigantic and radioactive, she grabs the ride vehicle and sucks on it like a pacifier. And you can actually smell some baby powder. Now, you couldn't smell baby powder on the dinosaur version during the Back to the Future ride, but I'm glad that they didn't try to like match like a dinosaur smell breath, because that would have been really, really nasty. And then as far as like Back to the Future being here in the park still, you do have the car from Back to the Future, the train from Back to the Future 3, and you know, for a long time I had been wondering about this car. And I was wondering like if it was the actual car from Back to the Future or if it was screen used. It's not. Now, a long time ago, before this car that you see now in the park showed up sometime in around 2020, the car that they had before was a screen used car from Back to the Future, but not like the movies. It was from the Back to the Future ride. This was the DeLorean that the actor Tom Wilson, who plays Biff on the ride, sat in, and they used it as like a stunt car for the filming of the ride. Not an actual DeLorean from the Back to the Future movies. The one that's in the park now is just a replica, a recreation. But the big train that you see in the park on the way to the Springfield area is the actual train from Back to the Future 3. If you remember at the end of the movie, when Doc Brown and his family create a time-traveling train that allows them to go all through time, that's the actual one right there. That is a real deal screen-used prop, which is something very cool to see, and honestly, not something you see that much of here in the park anymore. A little bit of Back to the Future love still going on here at Universal. And of course, how could I forget the awesome 3D show, Terminator 2 3D Battle Across Time. Used to be here in the Hollywood area, closed in 2017 to make way for the Bourne Stuntacular, which is a really great show as well. And it actually has some references to the old Terminator experience. In the pre-show, Julia Stiles' character says right at the end, she says something along the lines of like, "They will be terminated at any cost," which is like, you know, terminated, you know, it's the name of the thing. And in the show as well, there is one reference to Terminator that I've spotted. After he does his like cool little like flip where he like swings his legs up and he starts walking into the warehouse, he passes a coffee shop that's called Connor's Coffee, which is a reference to the characters Sarah Connor and John Connor from the Terminator movies. But if you're not seeing the show for whatever reason, you still want to get a Terminator reference in there, right outside of the theater, there is this facade for a car shop. And there's all fun different little props inside there, but one of the ones you want to look out for is the yellow Invader motor oils. One of the cans is a yellow Terminator motor oil, and the symbol is the Terminator on the motorcycle with his iconic shotgun. A lot of great references to a wonderful 3D show that used to be here in the park, and luckily, Bourne is just as cool, if not cooler. And lastly, my little trip around the park today has brought me to the recently reopened Mel's Drive-In, where there's not really references to old Universal, though. This has been here since the park opened in 1990 and just recently got a facelift. I had to stop in for a milkshake before I get out of here, and I noticed a fun little references to a lot of the old Universal rides we've been talking about today on the menu screen at Mel's Drive-In. If you're looking at the menu every so often, it'll like switch channels and you'll see a reference to like Jaws or Twister. Fun little way to keep the love of these classic attractions still going on here in the parks. And while it is fun to look back on the past and all the great things that used to be here at Universal, there's a lot of great stuff that's here now. And there's a lot of wonderful things, a lot of epic things that are gonna be here in the future, and I can't wait for them. Till then, that's all I've really got for you guys. Thank you guys for watching another Vincent Vision. Please, if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe for more Universal videos like this one. And if you are one of my Patreon viewers, I got a video coming for you. I did a lot of the references to Universal here in this video, but I'm gonna do a little mini video for you guys, showing you guys some of the references and callbacks to older rides and experiences that existed over at Islands of Adventure, which isn't that much, but there are some there. That one's gonna be exclusively for the Patreon subscribers. But everyone else, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun doing it. Please, if there's any other like Easter eggs or hidden things I didn't mention in this video, leave a comment down below and tell us, because like, I love that stuff. But until then, I'm gonna get on out of here. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you at the next one. Bye-bye.